I didn't see you there. I'm Miss Julia, and I'm excited to see you guys hanging out with me. It must mean that you want to do some embroidery. And I just have all my materials here ready to go. And the exciting news is that the Handwork Studio is now set up for you to bring embroidery into your home. So many of you might have been with us for summer camp and you noticed that you had an opportunity to do some embroidery samples, and you might have received a little bag with a card inside of it that will talk to you about where you can go to find all of our embroidery samples that are now downloadable for free on our website. And at the end of this video, we'll go ahead and give you the website that you can log into so that you can go and find them and create for yourself. And today, what I want to do is tell you guys actually how to do it. So what I want to do is show you a technique of transferring these images to a piece of fabric. And the way I started was I printed off of a regular printer our 4 images, and today I'm going to choose our bumblebee to show you how to transfer that to a piece of fabric. And then I'm going to show you actually how to start embroidering. So the next thing I'm going to do, I layered the fabric on top of the piece of paper that we printed, and I'm going to actually tape down. Make sure your tension's not super tight, but just enough that it's not going to wiggle around on you too much. So you can see I have nicely taped down my fabric along each side. There's about 3 pieces of tape, middle, and then 1 on each side of our rectangle here, so it's taut. You can you might be able to see the image now. The other piece of information that's important when you buy fabric is to make sure it's not a really opaque, thick fabric, because you want to be able to see the design through the fabric. It doesn't need to be sheer, but it just needs to be translucent enough to show that design through. Okay, so I think everyone can see our bumblebee. I have my colored pencil that we were talking about before, and then I'm just gonna gently trace over my design. We have our bumblebee. Okay, so now what we're ready to do is to put the fabric actually into the embroidery hoop. And this is really to have that tension so it's a little easier to sew through the fabric when you're looking at your design, and it allows everything to have a nice flat surface. So what I'm going to do is, this embroidery hoop happens to just have a little screw at the top. You don't have to take it all the way out. It's just enough to remove the inner circle from the outer circle. And then the inner circle is what's going to go underneath the fabric. And this is pretty standard amongst any embroidery hoop setup. You always have like 2 pieces to kind of create that tension. So once that's kind of lined up where you want it to be, you're going to take your outer hoop, and this is what's going to allow you to squeeze the fabric between the 2 layers and get that nice looking little drum top, okay? But it's not set just yet. We need to screw this knob in a little bit. So I'm gonna just twist that up till I can't really go any further. Good. And now we are set and ready to start embroidering. Okay, so I know this doesn't look like we were just working on a moment ago. What I wanted to do is give you a rundown of a couple of different stitches that we're gonna give a try today. And the first one, you see these little dashed marks here. It's called a running stitch, and it just kind of runs its way across the fabric. The next one down, you will see looks a little more filled in, and it's essentially the running stitch, but what we've done is we've used a reverse stitch or a back stitch, and that allows us to have those nice solid lines, and it's really a matter of preference. Down here I have my little polka dots. These are called French knots. They're wonderful for, you know, making little eyes, and if you just want to fill in some space, making sprinkles on a cupcake. So we'll show you how to do that. And this is a chain stitch, so you can kind of see this little wavy stitch. It has a little loop in there, and this is kind of nice to add a different type of design element to your embroidery. Threading the needle actually is probably one of the most difficult parts of this process, and it's obviously essential in what we're doing. So I'd say practicing threading needles is a big part of it. And so what I like to do is I like to twist it you know, you have a little oil on your fingers just naturally, and that kind of helps to keep the threads together. Some people like to lick their thread. I prefer not to do that, especially when I'm in a classroom setting, so I don't get slobby string all over the place. And I try to deter my campers from doing that too. And I hold it pretty close to the edge. I kind of almost squeeze it, and that way it adds a little more support to the thread, because if you're all the way out here, it's going to just kind of wiggle around on you. So I'm going to come pretty close to the edge, and I'm going to just line it up ever so. And I'm just going to push it through, and it kind of splays the thread a little bit, but I'm going to just stop it right there and pinch it and pull it through. What I like to do is you can leave a little tail hanging off the thread here, just so you don't double it up, but you are welcome. When I say double it up, it means to fold the thread in half, so the half point is at the eye of the needle, and then the two ends meet, and you can tie those together. This would give you a thicker line if you want. It's really up to you. You're the artiste, so you can make those decisions. Also, if you're dealing with a younger embroiderist, if you will, it helps to have a knot at the end, and that way you're not constantly pulling the thread off the needle. So it's really up to you and how you want this to look, and also what's easier for you to do. When you're getting ready to sew your needle, you have to direct your needle where you want it to go. Like, I don't want to sew the middle section here. And this takes time to understand how to manipulate your needle into where you want it to go. So I tell folks to sometimes line their hands up where you want it to go, and obviously watch your fingers, but your hands can create a little marking point where you want it to stick your needle. And obviously being careful not to poke your fingers, you're going to go ahead and find that point, and we're going to pull all the way up until you feel that knot, and that stops your thread from coming through. And this is now where we're going to get into the running stitch, where we're going to go up, and what goes up must come down. And I'm gauging this maybe about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, you know, in the stitch length. So it's really about making, you know, kind of nice small stitches so that you can get the shape you want it to be. And you're going to pull it all the way down. And this is where folks get tripped up sometimes, is that the thread is now underneath our embroidery. And you have to remember, if your thread is underneath your embroidery, you have to come back up from underneath. I call this my looper effect, where a lot of folks will come right back to the top because you can see what you're doing, and then they get this loop around their embroidery hoop, and that just won't work. So you just have to back it out. So we're gonna go back up from underneath. We're gonna pull it, and we'll just kind of hold on to it. And then we're going to go, you guys probably have guessed, way back down. And so depending on the ages you're working with, what you want to be able to do is, you know, just make sure it's not becoming so frustrating that they can't do it, but also to make sure, you know, you're giving them the opportunity to make the mistakes and learn from them and understand like why things work the way they work. I would say if you're starting, this is an okay project for anyone really about 5 and up. 5-year-olds, I would definitely double the thread and make a knot at the end, so that they're not constantly pulling the thread out of the needle, so you don't have to rethread it every single time. So I made it all the way around my little bee face here, and let's look at the other side. And you can see my stitches show up on the other side too, but my knot's back there. And since I'm done with this section, I'm actually gonna make a knot on this side. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring my needle underneath the stitch here, and I actually put a little pressure from my finger. I'm gonna come underneath the stitch, and I'm gonna pull it through, and this is what I call my balloon knot. You can see there's my balloon here, my little loop, and we're gonna pop the balloon. We're gonna stick our needle right through it, and what happens when you put something sharp in a balloon, it's going to deflate. So there we go, it's gonna come straight down. We're gonna do it again. I like to do it 3 times just to make sure it's extra secure, and then I will snip it so everything's nice and secure. So now that is all set with a running stitch. You can see the nice black outline that it's created around my little bee face. We want to bring it in. I'm going to line my fingers up roughly where I want it to go without poking my fingers. And there you go, I like that. and I'm going to pull my needle up and I'm going to bring it down. Just like a running stitch. We've done this before, it's familiar, but here's where things get a little different. When I come back up, you see I still have that space there between the end of my first stitch and the beginning of my second stitch. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go backwards. This is why we call it the back stitch. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to fill that little space in. So I'll bring it down, and now I'm going to come up in front, about the same as my running stitch, maybe about a 1/4 inch, up in front and down and back. And we're going to do the same thing again. It's going to go up in front, down and back, until we get to the end. Oh, we have this nice little smile. We know the bee is happy. Bring the needle from underneath, just like we've been doing for our running stitch, our back stitch. I'm gonna pull it all the way through. I used a single strand instead of the double that we used for the back stitch. And you can see that the thread is now connected to the fabric. And here's where things get a little different. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my needle right about where my eye is, and I'm gonna stick it down just a little bit to get the point in there. And it really helps to have my hand there to create a little pressure to bring the needle back out. So you can see I just kind of went in and out. This little bite of fabric there. And I'm gonna pull the point out maybe about 1 inch, and I don't wanna go any further, because now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the strand of thread that's connected to the fabric, and I'm going to wrap it 3 times around the needle. So it's gonna go 1, 2, 3. And this could be tricky, especially with small hands. So this is one that I really recommend for adults to help with, and practicing it a few times maybe on another piece of scrap fabric. And the idea is that the needle is really going through, it's gonna pull the thread through those loops that I just made. So I'm gonna kind of hold that down and see if you guys can see that. So it's going through, it's gonna make this like twist. And it's just gathering up all that thread that I just twisted around the needle and bringing it to the fabric. Now completed another part of our bumblebees, really starting to take shape here. Okay. All right, so I have come around my little bumblebee wing. It looks like a leaf here with our nice green embroidery floss. And what I'm gonna do is we're gonna create those chain stitches that we mentioned before. The chain stitches are all linked in this example right here. But what we wanna do is create sort of that, that veiny part of the bee wing that you would see. And the way that works is I'm gonna find you can kind of see the leaf shape inside the wing, and what we're going to do is we're going to just find a point where it kind of meets the middle section of the wing, and I'm going to pull all the way up here, and then I'm actually going to come right back down almost at the same point, and you get that loop. And what I want to do is anchor this loop to the wing. So that means I'm going to bring up my needle where I want the loop to be anchored. So just right about where the stitches meet, around there, and I'm going to put the loop over my needle, just like that. So it's starting to anchor it. And so now with this thread in the middle of that loop, it gets stuck right against the edge of the wing, and I'm going to bring it right back down to attach it to the wing. So that's one chain stitch. Again, you're the artist. This is just the template. So if you want to start making your own decisions about how you want this to look, go for it. I think that's awesome. I always say when we're in our camp programs, every project, though we might be working on the same thing, they all look really different. You guys get to bring your personality into what these are going to look like. So that essentially will bring me through all of the embroidery stitches that we like to implement into this design. But we will have more videos coming up eventually on different types of embroidery stitches that you can experiment with. Okay, so you guys have now completed a journey of embroidering some of our templates that you can get off of our website, and we'll complete that information at the end of this video so you can go ahead and download any template that you so choose. And we would also love for you guys to share whatever you're making, and we'll be able to give you like our Instagram tags and other social media outlets that you can show off all the cool things that you've been able to make. And I really appreciate you being able to work with us and learn with us at the Handwork Studio. Thanks so much.